The final sprint race of the 2022 Formula One season will take place at the Brazilian Grand Prix. But the event is not one that Max Verstappen enjoys, and the two-time F1 world champion has again criticised the event. So why is Verstappen not a fan of sprint racing? Stay tuned to find out. Formula One ran the first sprint race format during the 2021 British Grand Prix, a forgotten sideshow of a weekend whose headlines were all about Verstappen and Mercedes driver Lewis Hamilton, embroiled in a tense title fight. The format was tested again at Monza and Interlagos last year, and the general view among the teams, drivers and fans alike was the entire concept did little for the main event and was little more than a parade. Nevertheless, F1 chiefs persisted, convinced the teams with the right numbers, and 3 sprint races were penned in for 2022, with Imola hosting a now forgotten sprint race, Monza 2 and Interlagos getting it for a second year running this weekend. Promoters are literally buying into the concept with enthusiasm, as the sprint race on Saturday is supposed to attract bigger crowds than just qualifying as has been the norm, and as a result, 3 more have been added to the 2023 calendar, making it a total of 6 sprint weekends in 2023. However, Verstappen, who has won the World Championship twice, stated that he appreciates the consistent weekend format and that drivers tend to be cautious during the sprint races held on Saturdays because of the possibility of causing damage to their vehicles or falling to the back of the field. Verstappen said, "Every time I do these sprint races, it's about don't get damaged, make sure you stay in the top 3. For me, that's not really a race because you go into the main race and you know there are way more points available anyway. You just risk a bit more there. You do another start, which is exciting, but it's only really people who are out of position that move forward because only you put a tyre on that just lasts a whole stint and not much happens." Instead of incorporating an additional sprint into the weekend schedule, Verstappen is of the opinion that Formula One should simply stick to the main race. Verstappen added, "I don't understand what the problem is because we've had so many exciting races, so you don't need to add 1/3 of a race distance. Everyone is so careful anyway because if you are fighting for third and you have a little touch and you drop to last, you know your Sunday is going to be tough. Probably you won't risk it, so that's not really a race." F1 teams have been supportive of the expansion of the sprint race format in 2023, which received approval from the FIA at the latest World Motorsport Council meeting. You're enjoying this video, right? You definitely don't want to miss out on other amazing videos. So all you have to do is hit the subscription button. It's that easy. Thanks for doing that. Let's move on. Although the majority of drivers are reluctant to share their opinions, those who did so are in agreement that the traditional weekend format, which has been so successful, should not be altered. 4-time Formula One world champion Sebastian Vettel, who will be retiring at the end of the current season, hit the nail on the head when he claimed that sprint race weekends are a money grab by the sports owners, Liberty Media, pandering to promoters who have large coffers for the oft-forgotten sideshow a Grand Prix weekend hardly needs. The German driver concurred with Verstappen that the sprint races are less about racing and more about surviving, and he said, "I don't want to be the bad guy for just being the bad guy, but I think it is a way to make more money. If there is a race, obviously, it's more exciting than maybe a practice session. You have more people watching." Vettel added, "So I guess it's a question of approach, but then I don't have full access to the numbers. That's what we were told some while ago." In agreement is Lando Norris, who enjoys F1 as it is and cites the build-up from qualifying on Saturday and Sunday as the crucial elements of a Grand Prix weekend. On the other hand, Lewis Hamilton is more receptive to the sprint format, although he made it very clear that it would not be appropriate for every track. He said putting them in places like Brazil that creates a lot of opportunity, or somewhere like Baku, is going to be the best places for overtaking. "I'm not against it, as long as they're selective of where they put it." A Formula One sprint race is similar to a regular race, although it is significantly shorter. Through the use of these sprints, Formula One hopes to add additional excitement to a race weekend. A weekend of racing that includes a sprint race is visually distinct from a weekend that does not include one. This is because qualifying for the sprint race takes place on Friday. This operates exactly the same way as a normal qualifying session would. The sprint race itself is on Saturday, in the afternoon. The sprint is different from the classic race in 2 different ways. It is a shorter race. For example, in a sprint race, the drivers complete approximately 1/3 of the laps they accomplish in a Grand Prix. In addition, there is no requirement that drivers make pit stops or change their tyres. In the sprint races this year, as in previous years, drivers had the opportunity to earn some points. Last year, the points were only given out to the top 3 finishers in the competition. The points for the 2022 sprint races are for numbers 1 to 8. The driver who finishes the sprint race in first place receives 8 points. The driver who finishes in second place receives 7 points. The driver who finishes in third receives 6 points, and so on and so forth up to the 8th place. This is an improvement over the previous campaign and has the potential to make a significant impact on the outcome of the championship. Regarding rules, last year, the driver who won the sprint was awarded the honour of pole position. However, this year, the driver who sets the fastest time in qualifying, which on sprint weekends takes place on Friday, will be given the accolade. The driver who takes the pole position on Friday will start the sprint in the first position. Drivers who crash during the F1 sprint races face the same consequences as in a normal race. They simply have to start from the backfield. However, Formula 1 teams do get extra budget if there is damage to the car. So there are slightly different rules but the same circuit and speeds. So, how long is a typical Formula 1 sprint race? The length of the Formula 1 sprint races is approximately 1/3 that of the Grand Prix races held on Sunday. The race is 100 kilometers long, and the drivers compete against one another to see who can get the starting spot. And because the sprint races only last about 25 to 30 minutes on average, you won't need to clear your schedule for the entire afternoon to be able to watch them. A short time in which a lot can happen, so excitement is guaranteed. While the format of sprint qualifying gives the teams and their drivers a chance to bounce back even if they mess up the traditional qualifying session, it also brings new other challenges. The normal race weekend is dull for most fans, except for some purists, as the 3 one-hour-long practice sessions give the teams enough time to collect all the data and test their car setup for every possible scenario, resulting in a more predictable race weekend. Sprint qualifying weekends mean that teams have less time to practice their cars and develop their setup to accurately assess all possible scenarios and find the ideal balance between the qualifying setup and the race setup. It's possible that this is why a new format is being implemented, to incorporate an element of surprise into the race. The 3 consecutive free practice sessions help in rubbering up the circuit, which provides improved grip while also allowing the drivers to become acquainted with the limits of the track. With only 60 minutes of free running, there would be chaos during both free practice 1 and Friday's qualifying. This might lead to track restriction breaches, lap time deletions, spins, collisions, and surprise results, which is exactly what the F1 community wants. With this latest concept, Formula 1 is attempting to attract more viewers over the whole race weekend, not only during qualifying events and the race itself. The fans are kept engaged and entertained throughout the whole race weekend with this mouth-watering feast of mayhem that is delivered. If this concept of sprint races doesn't work out, it will be thrown out, just as the elimination qualifying format that was used in 2016. But if it does work out, the aim is to roll it out at chosen weekends in the future rather than at every Grand Prix. It is very clear that Stefano Domenicali and his staff did not pay any regard to the comments provided by drivers, teams, or fans, all of whom were generally unimpressed by the concept. So, what's your thought on the sprint races? Do you agree with Verstappen? Are you a fan of sprint races? Let me know in the comments section below. That will be all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you can always get to watch more amazing videos like this. See you in the next video.